Recording in progress.
It is 1:30. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the special open meeting of the Board of Directors of the United Laguna Woods Mutual. It's a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. Today's Monday, the 11th of August. It's 1:30 p.m. We're located in the administration building of Laguna Woods Village boardroom. All right. Anybody out there who had any questions, or you can actually still put your questions in if you're in on the Zoom meeting. Otherwise, you have to do it by calling 866-900-6833. All right. We are going to call this meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to review the 2026 United Business Plan version 3. All right. Can we get approval of today's agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right. The chair remarks. I just want to thank everybody. I know this has put a lot of hours in our lives, and I think everybody is giving some great input. I think we're heading in a good direction. After today, we hope we can call some things together and get some decisions made. And hopefully when we have the board meeting tomorrow, we might be able to even close this issue, hopefully. All right. Right now we're going to have the open forum. If anybody would like to speak, we'll give you 3 minutes to anybody. All right. All right, now we're going to have a review of the 2026 United Business Plan. I believe Steve from Finance is here to bring us along.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I'm excited to give my first presentation of the business plan to the budget. As all of you are well aware, my former assistant director would always give these presentations, but I've been excited for this opportunity. Let me go ahead and start off by saying that you have all received a copy of the staff report along with the business plan that was distributed on Thursday night. Then we've also gone ahead and made available the presentation that was printed out, and there's copies here for anybody who's in attendance. Of course, we're always making change up into the last minute when it comes to the presentation, trying to make it as current as possible. So that's why you received it this afternoon. But we'll go ahead and start off with slide number 2. And this is something that by now everyone should have been accustomed to seeing. So this is the plan for all of 26. You can obviously, you're familiar with the center column being United. I'll go into some of the details in terms of some of the changes that we've applied for the current year. But once again, this is what we've done leading up into this point. And on slide 3, you'll see where we stand today. So towards the bottom, second to the last row, today, Monday, August 11th, we'll be reviewing the version 3. And then just one step further ahead, Director Prater, you'd mentioned that tomorrow you'll be finalizing things potentially, but we're anticipating the final adoption of the board
September.
is going to be on September 9th. So,
September 9th?
yep. So then we'll go ahead and kick off the actual meat of the presentation. So as most of you are well aware, so beyond some of the contracts and various things that you have control over from a service level expectation, there is a number of things that affect you from the outside, such as inflation, which has been tracking between about 3 and 3.5%. Utilities, for instance, has gone up about 14%. So the latest information we received from SCE was back in late July 29th, I believe, where they announced once again that they're anticipating about a 13.68% increase. You're going to see that take effect as early as this coming October. But again, we've budgeted sufficient funds in the 2026 business plan. You're actually going to see in the 2026 business plan a larger year-over-year increase than the 13.5% I just mentioned, and that's because the anticipated expense for 2025, we're probably going to exceed the budget a little bit in 2025. So what we did is we anticipated the real forecasted electricity plus the roughly 14% to come up with the 2026 number. In addition to that, we're also seeing about a 7.5% increase for sewer. Water is increasing by 18%, and trash is about a 13% increase. So again, that was utilities. So again, other external factors. Moving on to insurance, we're seeing about a 19% increase for hazard and liability. That also includes some of the car insurance that most of us have gotten used to seeing. And then lastly, we're looking at both workers' compensation as well as just general wage adjustments. So from a workers' compensation perspective, we're not seeing more claims, we're just seeing higher dollar value claims. So once again, that's been built into your 26 business plan. And then lastly, the wage adjustments for 2026 are set at 4% for both union as well as non-union. Moving on to slide 5, we'll be discussing the development process of the budget itself. So unlike previous years where we would kick off the business plan with regards to the board, so we started this year back in January where we engaged all of your committees to make certain that the service level expectations that you're currently receiving in 2025 are things that you want to continue moving on with in 2026. From that, then all of the department heads worked together. They crafted a budget for 2026 that we felt would be reasonable and met the expectations of the boards and the committees. Each finance basically accumulated all that information, brought it back before the CEO, and in a combination of meetings, we refined it, and ultimately we brought forward a version 1 to all of you. So that was the ultimate starting point of the budget. Once again, this is kind of a reiteration of a little bit what we've done in terms of meeting in the committees, and taking a look at some of the past activities, making certain that we also adjusted in terms of the version 1 portion of the budget. We discussed some of the vacant positions that we had in the past and making certain whether or not we were going to keep those positions in the 2026 plan. And then also making certain from an efficiency perspective whether or not we needed to continue. Good job. So I'm going to take your eyes down to the middle where it says June. So version 2, that reflected a year-over-year increase to the proposed operating budget of about $3.6 million. And that's where we introduced you to the 5% year-over-year increase. At that time, there was some direction from the board, or not some, there was direction from the board to make certain that the contributions in your reserve expenditures matched your contributions. So the contributions matched the expenditures. We came back with something slightly different. So for version 3, we were requested to make certain that the contributions matched precisely the both contributions and the expenditures matched. So that's what we're going to be discussing today, version 3. So you're seeing a decrease in the operating budget of a total of about $800,000. Of that dollar amount, more than half of it is coming from your property insurance savings. So So a total of $458,000. So, but it's important to note that you will not see that in the actual total basic assessment. If all of you are familiar with your annual assessment letter that you received just prior to year end, you'll see your total basic assessments, then you'll see your property insurance because it's broken out individually. Everyone pays a slightly different dollar amount along with property taxes. So once again, the whole community will receive a significant savings from property insurance, but it won't be affected in the dollar amounts that we're discussing necessarily here. The other item that we did include at the request of the board was, again, making certain that the contributions to the reserves matched the expenditures. So, and in doing so, to make that math work, we made an adjustment from the version 2 budget by lowering the contributions to your contingency fund. If you recall, in your version 2 budget, it was at $5 per mana per month. So we've dropped it down to $3 per mana per month. And that gave us overall, that last line that you see here on the slide, version 3 represents a total year-over-year operating budget increase of $3.1 million, which is an increase of $26.18 per mana per month, or overall a 5% increase. This next slide here is going to give you the majority of the changes that impacted your basic assessment. So across the top, you're obviously seeing the 2025 as you're paying it right now. The version 2 for 2026, it's basically the same dollar amount as the version 3, just up by a penny, just a little bit of a rounding difference. And then once again, leading off to the right, that dollar amount I just mentioned is the $26.18. And your 4 increases that you're seeing here, and this is the difference between, again, your version 2 and your version 3. We increased your reserve contributions $6.50. So if you recall in the previous years, what we were working with is to replenish the funds in your reserve balances. Each year for the past, I want to say 3 or 4 years, you were seeing a $15 per mana per month increase. So that $15 plus this additional $6.50 here you see adds up to $21.50. So that is what you're being presented here today for your reserve contributions, at least from an increase perspective. Once again, what we did in version 2 is we reduced a bunch of about $600,000 worth of expenditures from the reserve. So version 3, we put all that back. So there was some $300,000 or so that was reduced from M&C, $100,000 from landscape, and a small amount, I think, from general services. All that has now been added back to the version 2 plan. That's why you're seeing a contribution increase once again for this $650. On that next line below reserve contributions, you see outside services. So we are proposing to you today a decrease from version 2 of $4.49. And this is primarily a reduction in general plumbing, so moisture intrusion specific to plumbing leaks, and then another $100,000 of moisture intrusion for plumbing stoppages. So the difference year over year is in the version 1 and version 2, we elevated those dollar amounts in anticipation of another large year of damages that we've experienced over the past in 23, 24, and maybe even 2025. But given the fact that it's unlikely that we're going to have, again, fingers crossed, so we in the Q1, early Q2, we've had some big storms in the past couple of years. One would hope that we're not going to see that repeated and repeated and repeated. So we've taken that out of the version 3 budget for 2026. So if, however, those storms do occur, hoping it doesn't occur, but if it were to occur, the board has recommended that we, again, have a larger amount being contributed to the contingency fund. So just in case, it doesn't necessarily make sense to charge your residents for in anticipation of higher storm damages. So once again, we removed it. So from year over year, you're seeing a reduction off to the far right-hand side of $2.77. But an offset to that is the increase to the contributions to your contingency fund. And then I've already covered the property insurance. So property insurance, ultimately, we in 2025, it was $4.5 million. In version 2, we knew it was going to go down, but we didn't have any definitive numbers, so we budgeted at $4.2 million. but after we met with the brokers, we've ultimately come down to a dollar amount of $3,741,000, a significant increase to what you're paying now in 2025. And the reason for that significant decrease has to do with primarily favorable market conditions. So despite the fact that we've had fires in California that have been rough, the claims that have been filed with the insurance companies have been favorable, surprisingly. So, and since you're seeing that favorable market conditions, you have a lot more carriers that are coming forth and offering insurance out there. And that supply and demand, you have more people giving supply, therefore your pricing has decreased. So once again, you're seeing about $700,000 or $800,000 decrease compared to 2025. Moving right along. Here is a comparison of your United Basic Assessments going back to 2022. You can see it's steadily rising. On average, for the past 10 or 11 years, you've been seeing about a 4.3% increase. So notably, last year, you had a 20% increase to more or less right the ship. So applaud the board's efforts with regards to that. Once again, this year, you're looking at a 5%. So despite the sizable increase that you had in 2025, despite the fact that you have a 5% increase in 2026, again, over 10 years, you've been averaging about a 4.3. So quite well. Next slide, you're going to see your total basic assessment, but this time it includes the current GRF plan as well. So in 2025, all of you right now are paying $761.02. And in 2026, this version 3 proposal is bringing you in at $810.92. So where I mentioned before, United is looking at a 5% increase for this proposal. GRF is looking at a 10% proposal. Most of that, if you're unaware, has to do with we had some losses of revenue. So that's kind of causing some of the changes that we're experiencing, as well as the other factors that United is also facing, such as utilities and other external factors. So with the 5% increase from United, the 10% from GRF combined, this $810.92 represents a 6.6% increase over your 2025 assessments. On to slide 11. Here is a breakdown of your business plan. And this mirrors the distribution that was sent out to you once again on Thursday. You're used to seeing the format in the Green Book, and this represents very similar here. So across the top, you're looking at your total non-assessment revenue of $27.81. Total expenses of $360.70. We are not providing a surplus, so as we did in the past. So that is bringing your total net operating down to $332.89. If you're unfamiliar with the operating surplus, what that had to do in the past was in the previous year, say in 23 and 24, you ultimately had unfavorable actuals compared to your budget. So what we included in the 2025 was to replenish that loss that ultimately impacts your your cash. So we put in the 2025 plan a $900,000 surplus recovery, an operating recovery. And that ultimately brought your cash balance back to where it should be in order to make sure you can pay all of your operating expenses. So that was unnecessary in 2020. I'm not anticipating a significant loss or income in 2025. Therefore, that operating surplus recovery is unnecessary in 2026. So that ultimately brought down your assessments. So from that net operating perspective, you saw a $3.18 increase. And then moving down to the reserve contributions, as we've been discussing, that $21.50 increase for your reserve contributions. That is the $15 per man or per month increase that the board has more or less approved over the past few years, plus the $6.50 to ensure that your contributions were matching your expenditures. Likewise, down below on the contingency contributions, it was raised from $1.50 to $3 per man per month, or a $1.50 increase. And on a future slide here shortly, you'll see that we break out these reserve contributions and contingency contributions to show where we've been as well as where we're going. Ultimately, on that United Basic Assessment line item, again, off to the far right-hand side, $26.18 increase for a basic assessment of $549.01 increase. There's your GRF for $261.91 for a total basic assessment of $810.92. So same slide, highlighting your reserve contributions. Ultimately, this reserve contribution, it's an increase. That $6.50 represents about $1.6 million increase in your contributions. Overall, once again, as I mentioned before, for version 2, we took out $600,000. That way we could bring down your reserve contributions to make certain that they would match your expenditures. But version 3, we're putting all those expenditures back and increasing it by $650. Our next slide. Here is where you can see where your dollar amounts are matching. So on that highlighted line for 2026, your overall contributions are $213.12. You're told that equates to a total basic assessment, or excuse me, an assessment for your reserves of $16,171,000. If you add that plus our anticipated $400,000 for your investment income, those two combined equal the expenditures that we're anticipating for 2026 of $16,555,000. And without having a calculation, you can see off to the right-hand side that in 2025, we're anticipating ending the year at $11.2 million, and in 2026, we're anticipating $11.2 and $17,000. So roughly very similar. So here's one of the questions for the board, not looking for a response immediately, but something to ponder. Given the fact that this is the first year that we are now matching contributions to your expenditures, so you're at a point, do you want to increase your contributions on a go-forward basis indefinitely for 5 years, 10 years, by that $15 per man per month that you've been doing over the past couple of years? Or, as we have it displayed here, would you prefer to have your contributions match your expenditures on a go-forward basis? I believe under the expenditures column, we have it increasing by 5% annually each year. And then from a contributions perspective, we just fiddled with the math to make certain that the dollar amounts would more or less match with a slight increase. Because over time, we do want to show that your ending balances need to elevate over time as your funding balances and how much it's going to cost to repair some of your future assets. So it's going to costs are going to increase. Therefore, we wanted to make certain that your overall funding levels remain consistent, which is going to require your ending balance to increase proportionately. Again, maybe when you get to the questions, I'll come back around and ask the question. If you're interested in going up to the $15 per man or per month, or right now I believe I'm sitting here at, forgive me, I should have written this down, but you're looking at $225 minus $213, $12, right? So very, very close to the $15. But I want to make certain that that was known, that I intentionally deviated from the $15 per man or per month increase because we had already met the goal of matching your contributions to your assessments. And then similarly on the next slide, here we have your contributions to your contingency fund. As I'd mentioned, this has gone up by $1.50 in order to replenish some additional funds. And this is once again in anticipation of this dollar amount. This fund expressly is it works as a savings account. If in the future you end up having some damage restorations that were unexpected, this can be used as monies to pull from if necessary. And on the next slide, you'll see our contributions here. Back in 2018, we had a balance as high of $2.7 million, and we've worked our way down to a low in 2024, about $600,000. So by increasing the planned contributions over the next few years, in 2026, we hope to, if we don't have any things that we need to pull from, we would anticipate ending the year next year at $941,000. And hopefully, if we're able to increase it by $1 per man per month with each successive year, we'll see about $2.6 million by 2030. Of course, it'll all be dependent upon the board's decisions in future years and what actual activities come through the next few years. Okay, our next slide is simply the property tax fund. No real news here. We always make certain that our assessments that we charge the residents match the expenditures, but because it is a significant fund, we want to make certain that it was brought forward to your attention. And then our last slide, once again, is just a repeat of the earlier version where we showed you the major changes. And the next slide here says questions, but I'm going to pause here intentionally because this is the what is driving the change for your year-over-year increase. And I will pause if there's any questions that I can address for you.
Go ahead, Ron.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make a couple of comments on the comparison. I'm sorry. On the comparison between the 25 plan and the 26 version 3 plan, just to make sure we have the same methodology used, if we are to ignore any surplus or recovery for 26 version 3, we should do the same for 25. So we are comparing apples to apples, or just comparing expenses year over year as opposed to recovering or not recovering what had occurred the prior year. Mm-hmm. If we were to remove the 1186 from 2025 then,
sure.
So we have zeros in both columns, the change from year to year would be $60, not $50. I just want to make sure we understand that we're talking about a $60 increase, not $50. Then back to the reserve fund. It seems to me we have two factors to consider. One is the
What page are you on? Excuse me.
If you take, for example, page 14.
Page 14, okay.
You see that in the 25 plan column, there's this operating surplus recovery line that has 1186 in it. And that's a recovery from 2024. Mm-hmm. In 2026, we have zero because we're assuming no recovery or surplus from 25. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, I agree with Steve, let's remove recoveries and surpluses, and let's just look at actual costs incurred in that year, exclusive of any recoveries or surpluses from prior years, and compare apples to apples. When you do that, and you remove the 1186 from the 25 column, you end up with a $60 increase year over year, not 50. So that was my point on that.
If I can address that before you move on to
Yes,
the next
please.
one. So I would actually consider that surplus recovery or operating deficit recovery as an anomaly, right? And that was one of the several significant reasons why you read a 20% increase last year.
That's
so,
right.
So I'm hesitant to say that absent that decrease, you would have seen a 60. But I guess, yes, it really was a tremendous help by a reduction of 1186. Correct.
Then the other point I wanted to make briefly is on page 13, the reserve fund. So the 26 number, 11.2, would be the lowest number in the whole time series, starting 2018 to 2030. So that's a low point. Apparently, we're at 22%. It equates to 11.2 million. So we have two factors to consider. The total amount in dollars, which is 11.2, which is very low. But we also need to consider that that amount equals to a lower percentage of 22%, which actually keeps on decreasing even while the dollar amount is increasing. And that's the point I wanted to make. So given that, our reserve is awfully low.
Yes.
It is, even with the 650 we did, it is just a ridiculous amount and percentage, both of them. So I just want to make sure we understand that even as dollar amounts increase, that does not mean we're doing well. The percentage will actually continue to decrease because the total 100% fully funding amount is also increasing. Thank you.
Are you finished?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was very helpful. And so Steve has asked us a couple of questions. What do we want to do with the reserves? I think we should continue with the balanced budget. It's been very hard fought to get a match of our expenditures and our revenues to match. So that was great. That was very, very hard. It was, but that does not mean that we should not continue to increase the reserves. So I think we finally caught up there, but it just isn't reasonable to just be hovering around $11,000 or $11 million and getting up to $12 million when we know that there are things that we could do, perhaps put solar energy in to try to offset some of our costs, like as GRF is doing. I don't know if that's something we want to do or not, but it's been floated around that might be something that would help. We just don't know what's going to go, we'll need in the future. So I think we need to develop a plan like we have in the past about what is our goal? What do we want to see that ending balance to be? And I know we're waiting for a report, but I think we just need to make peace with the fact that we're going to have to put more money in there. And I think our contingency contributions are woefully low. We always go into those contingency contributions, and we need to increase those as well. It's never going to be easy, but $1 or $2 here or there to make it better for everybody is preferable than being on pins and needles, in my view.
Steve, question on the reserve money that we'll be putting into it for 2026. Is that a certain percentage of is there a percentage number of that? Or is it just a number that we're using, increasing it by $15 or $21?
So the way the math worked was we identified how much you wanted to spend in 2026.
Okay.
So ultimately, you came up with $16.7 million was the ultimate spend.
Okay.
And the direction of the finance committee, and subsequently the board, the contribution was therefore matched to the contributions,
Okay.
expenditures. So that's how we came up with that dollar amount. It wasn't necessarily a percentage. But once again, in the past, it's always been the past 3 to 4 years, it's been a $15 per man or per month increase year over year, despite what it was, because you were woefully underfunding the reserve expenditures. And that was the reason why your balance has declined. So if the board hadn't taken the actions in version 2, we still would have saw a decline for one more year.
Right.
That $15 per man per month increase would have gone for one more year before we would have reached that stabilization point.
Okay.
So you accelerated it in 2026 to make it happen a little bit sooner. And then on a go-forward basis, again, my question to you is, do you want to go back? I'm going to nod my head, and that would be my suggestion, is to put it at the $15 per man or per month. So that is the question. So on a go-forward basis, once again, here on screen, I have it at a $12 increase per man or per month. And the reason why I chose that dollar amount, once again, is it more or less matched your contributions to your expenditures, with your expenditures going up by about 5% each year. But noting what Director Kespe had mentioned, you will, in fact, exactly what he just got done saying, the fact that your increases over time to make these repairs are going to continue to go up. You can't keep level. You have to continue to increase.
Absolutely. I guess what I'm looking for is, we're doing this year or for 2026. So in 2027, is there a percentage that we want to increase that number to keep up at the rate that we are now increasing?
Got it.
Yeah, is it just 5% cover that? In other words, we want to put in place an automatic 5% increase in that to go to the reserve to keep that trend of adding more into it year over year.
Sure. My recommendation would be to go a bit higher than that, because that would even, so what I have here on screen at 220 $225 per member per month in 2027.
Yeah.
That's $12. The a 5% increase would only be at $223.77. So that'd be less.
Little
I
bit
know you're
less.
just throwing out 5% as an
Right,
example.
right.
But my recommendation would be to continue with the $15 that you've gotten used to over the past couple of years, that or choose a dollar amount that's a little bit higher. We can go ahead and say if you wanted to put in here from a contribution perspective, 15 or even be aggressive and say $18 beginning in 27, put it at a 5-year mark. By that point, you'll probably be at a 30% funding perspective, and at that point, the level off might be a little bit more appropriate.
Right.
So, and by that point, hopefully, you'll start earning some more on your investments, an additional contributor.
Okay. Do we have a mechanical, do we need to make a motion for this, or do we need?
So if you were to make a motion to pick either 15, 18, I don't have the exact numbers to give to you at this moment
Okay.
as a recommendation. But if you were to throw out a number and go with we'll just say the $18 per member per month addition for the next 5 years, we'll factor that into the reserve study and make sure we bring that back to you here in about a week or two before when it's finalized.
Yes, Director Tom?
Even if such a motion's made, the board next year can change
Yeah,
that to whatever, just like this year, we're changing it.
Absolutely.
So it really doesn't do you any good to have a motion on that today, other than that's what you'd start with, correct?
It helps me to put the information into the reserve plan as
Direction.
opposed to me just picking a number. Because what I don't want to do is, 2/3 of you hopefully will be on this board next year, right? So I want to make certain that's the board's direction, that you'd want to do an increase as opposed to staff just picking a number to include in your future contributions.
I think Murad has been asking, but when do we see the more detailed reserve study to make sure which level we are, 30% of our whole, so that we could have a better, clear idea how much money we need, to put it on. I mean, for sure, all of us, we like to increase the level of reserve fund as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So
so-
we have a preliminary draft, so we'll have a finalized one probably within a week and a half. So when I had spoken to the Association of Reserves Specialists last week, I targeted to have it done by mid-August. So, and that's
Mid-August.
basically within a matter of a week.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and distribute that reserve plan that way. What I don't want to happen is I don't want you guys to see it for the first time while you're sitting here on September, in your September board meeting. But again, we're trying to make certain we can get it as quickly to you as quickly as possible.
Okay. Director Revere?
I guess, I don't know if you're the right person, Steve, to ask, or Mickey, or whoever. So I was just wondering about developing revenue. I mean, we have these bills, but we don't necessarily have to keep ponying up more and more all the time if we have more in the way of revenue. What's being done about that?
If I may. So we had a revenue generating committee that met for a number of months. We actually did have a couple items that came from it, right? So the proposals that were presented, we had an opportunity to, from a leasing perspective, that was going to be a potential revenue contribution, but that's still being worked through. We're focusing on getting the budget completed, and then we're working on a number of fees in all three of the corporations before the year end. So we won't know until we finalize those numbers what the reality is. And for instance, the leasing revenue that may come out of it may not even move forward depending upon the board's direction. So meaning the board has to approve it before you move it forward.
Okay, so this is happening independent of any revenue
Absolutely.
committee, because I thought it had been closed down or something. Or
Correct.
The United.
So throwing out a number, whether it's $250,000 or $1 million, that dollar amount will contribute to the revenue that is not budgeted for, and then will be an additional, if and when, hopefully, you exceed the budget next year, so for 2026, if revenues exceed expenses by $250,000, $500,000, that dollar amount would get put into your contingency fund. And then that will be an additional help in terms of building that balance.
Okay, thank you.
I had another question, if you want to go back to page 4 real quick here. You were talking about the utilities increases on percentages. I missed a couple. You had SCE at 13%?
Yeah, 13.6, .68%.
16?
13.68%.
Okay, the sewer?
Sewer was a 7.6% increase, or 144,000.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, could you start over so I can write it down? I'm really sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, he
No
can.
problem.
It wasn't
Again,
fast enough.
So again, we're talking about external factors, specifically utilities. So electricity has increased by about 14%, specifically 13.68. Sewer increased by 7.6, or 144,000. Water increased by 18.1%, or $413,000. And trash increased by $174,000, or about 13%.
174?
174,000, correct.
Any more questions going forward before we go forward? Mr. Rader?
Dick Rader, 270D. When the reserve study is finally available, are you going to be making public to the residents any proposed changes to the budget before the final version 4?
Great question. We are not going to, if the reserve study, I'm not anticipating going to have any impact into the 2026 business plan. Does that answer the question?
Well, but it will affect the reserve fund and the discussion here. I was sort of surprised that it had been changed from 15 because that's what past boards have done. And as I suggested last time, that as has been brought up, this reserve fund, the ending balance is really holding steady. It isn't going anywhere. It is our elephant in the room, and we need to address it. And as I mentioned last time, the turf reduction thing is not going to go away. And I believe this past year, Kurt suggested that we do something, spend money on it. We didn't. Now we're not going to do it again. So what's going to happen is this turf reduction thing, it is going to happen, and we're not increasing or anticipating those expenses. So it's not just a matter of picking a number out of the air. It's also strategic planning. And I think the board really needs to pay attention to that. I'm glad that Georgiana, Director Willis, brought up the reserve fund study. I just brought it up. I will not go into detail, but I can tell you as a member of that revenue committee, my strong recommendation is the following, that be pursued as quickly as possible because it was going to bring in a projected amount of around, I think it was $800,000, thereabouts. And it has stagnated. Nobody's followed up on it. So now it's going to happen, hopefully. And I would like to see the reserve committee, revenue committee, reconstituted when the report, when the RFIP goes out and they get a response. The reason for that is the following. The response may be positive, in which case you don't need any further input from the committee. But if the response comes back either negative or proposed changes, I think that should be taken up in the reserve study committee for the following reason. If it gets turned down entirely, that is, we don't get a good response, and I could get in more detail what I mean by good response, but anyway, it is up to us, and I think there is a way to implement that program without let's just say there are alternate ways that we could discuss in committee, and I think that should happen because we should be able to institute that program. And I can have more detail, but I'm not going to take your time. But that's why I'm asking that it be moved forward as quickly as possible, that the revenue generating committee be handled the results, and then we take appropriate action. One other point or question. let's see if I had another question. I thought I did. This budget, the fact that we don't put in a surplus, am I correct that essentially there's not much leeway if anything untoward happens?
We did add, at the board's direction, another $1.50 to the contribution into the contingency fund. So, but that's about the extent of it. But that's, for the most part, intentional, right? Because we're trying to manage the year-over-year increase and be reasonable to a certain extent and have it applied as close to inflation as possible. So, and we're happy to say that it's at 5% currently. Ideally, if we had unlimited funds, you'd continue adding to your contingency fund. So that would be the best course of action. But trying to keep the increase at a reasonable level, that's what we limited it to.
Thank you.
Elsie.
Yes. Way down there.
Jake, I'm really sorry. I think I was listening closely, but I'm kind of new to that.
Microphone.
But what is this $800,000?
Microphone.
Is your microphone on?
Excuse me.
Can you pull it towards you?
What's the project?
The project was approved by by Jeff Beaumont. It is a way of taking a percentage, I think it's 10% of any rental of a manor.
Ah, brilliant.
Okay.
Okay.
And it required somebody to manage it. And so an RFP was going to go out to see if there would be somebody, a realtor, whatever, that would want to take advantage of the program without getting specifics. There were some advantages to us, some advantages to that manager. But if they didn't bite, what I'm saying is, goes back to the committee, and we could come up with ways to get around it so we can push this thing through.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have heard about that plan, but I didn't know that's what you were referring to today. Thank you very much. I think it sounds great, my own self, but.
And if I could add one comment to that. So as part of your previous question, do we have any surpluses anticipated? So one of the things that we are hoping for is if we are able to find additional increases to revenue, right? So those will go above and beyond what we had budgeted for in 2026. And that, once again, as I mentioned before, would go into your contingency fund and hopefully potentially offset things like the turf reduction. So that turf reduction, in talking to Kurt, is anywhere between $2.5 million worst case scenario. So if we ended up getting the $800,000 potentially from this resale opportunity, in 2 years, 3 years, you'd have that component paid for.
If I may, you mentioned that insurance has gone down, but that's for this year? Okay. Is there any guarantee, because I think you're betting on it, that it will go down again? Haven't you put that into the budget, that it's possibly going to go down again, and that's why you have decreased the amount?
We've budgeted for $3.7 million in 2026. I'm guessing if we want to start talking about insurance that goes out into 2027 and beyond, we can talk about that in a future state, but maybe not in this meeting here. So I don't have that information.
So it's not
beyond.
going to, but I saw that you had decreased the amount of insurance that you're going to charge for, is that correct?
2026, correct.
Do we know that we have that decrease in hand?
I believe that, yes. So
Okay.
that is the dollar amount that we're going to be, and that's effective as of June. So that is the dollar amount that you're going to be begin
So we're
paying.
guaranteed.
For,
Yeah.
yes. The answer is yes. And we budgeted a anticipated increase in the latter half of 2026. That's the unknown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, isn't that most of that money that we saved on insurance due to us getting together with Third, and so we reduced our broker fees? Is that correct? Or I have that correct?
So you did that in 2024. So this is the second year of that occurring. But the real reason based on conversations with our risk manager, most of the reasons why you're having a decrease is the fact that, again, favorable market conditions, you were able to go out to more carriers, which ultimately drove down the price. But yes, you are correct, though, that had you not done that, you would have been sitting with a different scenario.
Okay, slide 7's where you put in the, talk about the insurance increase. And if I'm correct, the new insurance basically gives us the equivalent of a $10 per man or per month, which means the second half of the 2026, you budgeted an increase of $4, or actually some amount that
Correct.
lowers that $10 to $6 per man or per month. But we're expecting to maybe even have another reduction next year with the special insurance program.
Quite possibly.
So it seems to me that we should be looking at the budget still as having a $10 decrease in the property per man or per month property insurance and not having an increase in the second half of 2026.
Right. So what Director Tooney is talking about is what I mentioned before in terms of your assessment that you're receiving includes your property taxes as well as your property insurance. While it's not factored into the total basic assessment, each of you will be paying about $10 per man per month less on the insurance line item. Correct.
And it's not in the assessment, but you're showing it as an increase though anyway? On the 2026, when you do the budget for the insurance, you're showing an increase in the second half of 2026 in your budget, correct?
So we are anticipating, yes. So we are anticipating an increase. Let me find out exactly how much Dan factored in. So Dan's available if we want to have him come down and talk about that specific question for the second half. But yeah, I believe we did factor in, we took what we've committed to for the period of July 2025 through June 2026. We know that number, and then we anticipated a percentage increase from that point forward. So to your point, if we actually had a decrease next year, then you'll be over budgeted.
So I would like to see the anticipation at no increase instead of an increase for the total property insurance.
Gotcha. So right now, in the second half of what you've committed to for second half 25, first half 26, and then there's a 20% increase on top of that for the second half of the year.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I would think that should be removed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're projecting an increase when we're really expecting a decrease. I think that's what we're seeing
Okay,
here.
understood. Okay, that change could be made. With regards to the total impact to your assessment, would you like whatever dollar amount that comes up to? It's a simple math, but I'm not prepared to do it here quickly. Do you want that dollar amount being contributed to your reserves, to your contingency? Where would you like to see that surplus going? Or would you like to?
Basically, we should be talking something around a $4 per man or per month. I mean,
Okay.
regarding, because we were talking roughly $10 per man or per month, and that's an average, correct? Because every manor may be a little different.
Correct.
Depending on,
Yeah, the size of their unit.
right. So I'll leave that to the board what to do with that $4, roughly $4.
Go ahead.
Chair
Director
Prater,
Kwan, go ahead.
I don't want to just hand that money back. We have done this in the past where we've been overly optimistic. So if you think that we may not need it, then it should be in the reserves.
Yeah.
You know, whatever that difference is, we should apply that
that
toward
to
the
the reserves.
reserves, just to be careful.
Yeah.
And to also grow the reserves, if you are intent on doing that. So, if you want to do that, I would only agree to it if it was placed in the reserves.
Yes, Director Ellis? Elsie?
I think that's a really good idea, what Director Quam said, but to make everybody happy, if we put it into the contingency fund, then that would be and say it did go south and we owed the money, that would be, instead of having to figure out where out of reserves are we going to take it, blah, blah, because obviously we have to come up with the money. Well, we could just say, contingency fund, So I endorse your
Yes.
idea with a suggestion that it be directed toward the contingency fund.
Okay, I
Okay,
definitely.
that makes sense.
That makes good sense, but I would like to know this. If we put it into the reserve, we get interest on it. If we put it into the contingency fund, we're going to lose that interest. Is that correct? Or is it enough to even?
We balance between the two accounts as best as possible, correct? So you're going to receive any significant balance that you have, you're still going to maintain a earning interest on that dollar amount.
Okay, either way, we'll still get the interest, okay.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit, but it's still income that I.
No, that's good point.
Yeah, let me, just because we are in a borrowing cycle, and the first place you borrow the money from is the contingency fund, right? So you don't need to look at interest from the contingency fund until we take care of borrowing $6.5 million every year.
That's right, absolutely.
So,
Yes.
yes, I like to get all the ideas. So to summarize, we will subtract that difference of the insurance saving from PMPM. However, that much will be contribute to the reserve fund.
The reserve fund, yes.
Or
Make
contingency.
sure that,
Yes.
yeah.
And Director Laboratory?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, when we take money out of contingency fund, we're not really borrowing it, are we? That's what contingency's for, when we run short of stuff, right? So we can stay on budget. So are we borrowing from contingency?
Yes, so when you're talking about like the temporary borrowing, you're more or less referring to borrowings from the reserve. So
No, I'm
if you,
talking about contingency.
understood. So, but once you build up the contingency fund, you will no longer need to borrow from the reserve. That's what I believe was the question that was being addressed. So as of right now, we have about $700,000, $800,000 in the contingency fund. So during the course of day-to-day business, we're more or less using those funds on a regular basis. So
But do we call that borrowing?
you'll see it reflected on your financial statements. Given the fact that the contingency fund falls, I'm going into too much detail, but the contingency fund falls under operating. So we don't really call it borrowing because we use it as needed and we return the money. Again, it's all spelled out on your financial statements and it's listed as a borrowing from that fund, but we don't need special board approval to borrow from it because it's technically an operating fund.
Thank you.
You're both right.
Yeah, Charlie.
Director Tuning?
Can you tell us, if you look at slide 15, I believe, there was a sizable contingency fund at one time, and then there were some huge expenditures. Can you tell us what those huge expenditures were in general?
Sure, damage restoration. So we had some significant expenditures that we made back in 2018 and 2019. So they caused us to deplete the funds. So once again, we've taken away from your outside services for 2026. So we've reduced that several $100,000. So fingers crossed we don't have another 100-year storm next year. But if that were to occur and we have a lot of leaks and damages, then we would spend down that fund as well. Let me just point out once again, though, that and I'm hearing that's kind of the consensus, but I will be looking forward to a motion if someone wants to make one. If you were to take that $4 and add it to your contributions to reserves, it will be an increase in your total basic assessment year over year, even though you're seeing a savings coming from the property insurance. As I've mentioned a couple times now, that property insurance is not factored into your total basic assessment. ultimately what that's going to do is it's going to increase. Right now, we're saying, if you can turn to slide number 17, please. So on the top right-hand side, you're seeing a $26.18 increase. So just that quick math, you're looking at $30.18. So $30.18 divided by 522.83. So what was a 5% increase is going to go to a 5.8% increase. So it depends upon the interests of the board. If that 5% is worth holding to, I'm indifferent. I always like the idea of increasing your reserve contributions, so I will obviously support that decision, but I know that we were targeting 5% for a little while.
Go ahead, Mr. Denning.
We've heard the comments about the reserve fund being so important and so critical. We've heard about not budgeting for turf reduction at all and some other things like that. So I move that we lower the property insurance by the appropriate amount and make the equivalent contribution to the reserve fund.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? There we go. Thank you. Passed.
Okay.
All right.
Chair Prater?
Yes.
Talking about the contingency fund and the reserves, it was helpful in the past. This is like the third budget cycle I've been on, but to have a target to say we're going to increase it $2 or $4 or whatever it was per year, because it just helped the board to wrap their minds around that is what is needed in order to get to a certain percentage. And you can always go up or down, but it's really good to have a goal and to have us agree on it. So I know that we can change it, but I do think it's very helpful, as Steve suggested, to get that in our minds. And this dollar increase on the contingency fund per year is, while it's moving us in an upward trajectory, it's really not getting us very far. And that's the place where people come in and say, you're taking our money out of the reserves to pay property taxes or to pay insurance or whatever, that we're not getting our interest. So, do we want to see on that contingency fund, do we want it to be a dollar increase? Do we want it to be $2 and see if what that would actually be in order to try to make progress toward using the contingency fund for those bills that we know are coming? I don't know.
If I were to have some recommendation, I would go ahead and keep it as such. So within a matter of 5 years, you're going to be about $2.5 million, which returns you to its highest levels. My recommendation would be to focus your attention to the reserves, which you guys have been doing.
All right, thank you.
In order to drive that dollar amount up as much as possible. The contingency fund, again, what you saw on screen a moment ago was it's a dollar increase year over year. But if there's any wiggle room, that is where we use the contingency fund. So if we have a year where expenses for whatever reason decrease, we'll put more money towards a contingency fund. If there's years where utilities skyrocket, well, then we'll dial it back a little bit. But hopefully the reserve funds is where you'll be consistently adding and rebuilding and increasing that balance.
Okay, thank you.
Again, just my recommendation, though.
Well, Steve, my apologies for, I forgot that insurance is not, but it is adding to the per man or per month, right?
Absolutely. Your individual per man per month will include your property taxes. So, but that being said, everyone here pays a different dollar amount.
Right.
So you have your total basic assessment, and then on top of that, you have property insurance and
Right.
property taxes. So.
But that's in addition to this nut, right?
That's correct.
So how is, what we just voted on, I voted. So how is that gonna, so adjustments to, it's not a quid pro quo between adjustments to the amount we plan for insurance
Yeah.
versus rolling it over, and, you know, what I thought was a really good idea.
You know, it
But
is a
so,
good idea.
but now it's not, even if we roll it over into,
Purely presentation. Karina, if you can turn to
I
slide
mean,
number
how is it
10.
different, what I'm saying is, how is it different putting the savings into reserves from putting it into, I mean, either way, it's not gonna lower
From a,
the nut, right?
sure, from a total dollar amount that you pay out of your pocket, so again, individually, everyone is paying a
Right.
slightly different dollar amount.
Right.
So whether you take the savings from property insurance and you put it towards your reserve, at the end of the day, the bottom line number is not going to change for each of you. It's just a redistribution of where you're going to put it. The reason why
Right.
sometimes it's
Oh, no, I knew that.
okay, so, but on screen, what you see before you, the recommendation for version 3 is $810.92, right? So, again, presentation. So because this number here, your total basic assessment, does not include property insurance, that's a supplemental dollar amount that everyone's assessed differently, this number is now going to increase by potentially $4. If that's important to somebody, by increasing by $4, that may make a difference. But the bottom line number, you won't see a change. Because we're going to be taking it away from how much we're budgeting overall for property insurance.
Well, you know what, if everybody else here gets it, I'm gonna come see you in your office.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You can explain it.
Director Tuning and then Director Brown.
Yeah, I actually think I made the motion a little bit incorrect, because we're taking $4 out of the $10 decrease in property insurance. And I'd really like to see all $10 of the decrease in property insurance go to the reserve fund. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying. The property insurance is a $10 per man or per month decrease right now. Is that correct, Steve?
As it stands now.
And we move $4 of that 10 out. But I'd really like to see all $10 of the decrease in property insurance be moved to the reserve fund instead of just the $4. So I would move that the additional $6 of the property insurance per man or per month decrease also be moved to the reserve fund.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that. If you, well, I can
Just
second it, and then we
the
can
second, then
discuss
we
it.
have discussions.
Yeah, we can discuss it. But
We gotta get a second.
with a suggestion that that money be earmarked for turf reduction. Just,
We can't,
I'll second it, that was just a suggestion. I seconded it, so now we can,
okay, she seconded, now we discussion?
I just want to make sure we all agree as to what it is we're looking at. Last year, when people agreed to $761, they thought property insurance will be the same throughout the entire year. What happened was, 5 months into it, it decreased. So the remaining 7 months had an amount lower than the first 5 months. People paid for the entire amount in the 761. So that decrease of 449, whatever it is, reflected in the latter 7 months of the year, this year. If we were to move it to reserve, it's actually a transfer from
Right.
from a non-basic to a basic. Because the property insurance last year was outside of the basic. The reserve is within the basic. And we are saying, let's move something that's not within the basic framework into the basic. Do we have the right to do that?
We do have the right to do that, yes.
You absolutely have the right to do it. Again, it's just going to present it. If what you're saying again, it's just going to cause your basic assessment here on screen to elevate.
Yes.
The bottom line that everyone's going to pay will be the same, right? It will not be impacted. The dollar amount that you individually pay as your basic assessment, the dollar amount that you pay as your total assessment will not be affected by the change that's being recommended here. Because once again, you have a total basic assessment of $810. You pay, make up a number, $100 for property taxes and insurance. So now you're at $910. If all of a sudden I take $50 and add it of the property insurance, and I move it up to the basic assessment to increase your basic assessment to $860, the bottom line of $910 is still not going to change.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
We do
Doesn't
have a
fit.
motion
Okay.
on the floor here.
I have a question.
Yes.
And it's for Steve. Steve, I want to make sure that I understand it too, Elsie. I agree with Tom that I think that this amount should move, the total amount should move into reserves. But that is the board discussion. We've not heard from staff. Do you think that this is doable and is a wise decision?
Anytime you can increase your contributions to reserve, I think it's a wise decision, especially given the fact that I'm anticipating that 2026, your green book, your business plan is going to show that you're about 21 to 22% funded, where you should be at 30. Right? So I think the more money you can contribute to your reserves, the better. But once again, we're cognizant of the fact that every dollar that you charge a resident more than what they're paying now, they'll feel it, right? So there's a balance. What you're doing here is nice because it really won't impact them. It's just a different of moving it from your total amount into your total basic.
Okay.
And for
Now
clarification before anything is finalized, so what was mentioned before, Karina, if you can go to slide 17. Okay, in the middle of your screen or towards the bottom where it says property insurance, under the 2026 version 3, it says $3.7 million, $3,741,000. That dollar amount includes a 20% increase in the latter half of 2026. So what I heard from the first motion that passed unanimously was to remove that 20%.
That's right.
So I could still do that because if all things go well, it's possible that we will see another decrease, but that's still unknown, right? So right now the motion included that removal of the 20%. So am I keeping that as part of this new motion that's made? Am I keeping that 20% reduction on top of the $10 movement from total payment to increase the total basic?
Yeah.
Director Prater,
Did I know?
procedurally, shouldn't we rescind the prior vote and then just, yes, and then make your motion? Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for reconsideration of the prior vote. Am I doing this right, Tony? How do we do this?
Well, you can do it either way. I mean, the motion's been passed. You just want to make another motion to increase it, or you can pull down the other motion.
For
As long
clarity's
as
sake,
it's-
should we
As long
pull
as
it
it's
down?
properly memorialized and we follow the protocol.
How do you think we should do it? Tony?
Just make up a
This is-
motion, make a friendly amendment. Yeah.
Can I amend my own motion?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we'll try to clear it up this
Okay.
way. That the $10 in the decrease of the United Property Insurance that's currently listed as a $10 decrease per manor per month in version 3 will be moved, that $10 per manor per month will be moved to the reserve fund.
Great.
So in addition, in essence, adding $10 per manor per month to the reserve fund, and that was slated for the property, equivalent to the property insurance amount. Does that make sense? So,
And it does make
Yeah.
sense. No,
Then-
Tony says it doesn't make sense. Director?
Well, we already
Laboratory?
approved $4, right?
Right.
So now what's he going to approve, $14?
No.
No.
So it would be 6 more?
so
$4 was $10.
So we can add to that addendum
Six
to,
dollars.
to,
Overhead.
it supersedes the previous motion on the $4 and this, by passing this one.
I'll second.
You second? All those in favor? Oh, look, I didn't see you. Wait a minute. I'm sorry, we had a second with discussion?
Yeah.
Yes,
Correct.
please. If I understood it correctly, when I originally came up here, I asked if there was a guarantee with regard to the insurance. Now I'm hearing that it may go down, but there is no guarantee for the second portion. Is that correct?
We're doing a number of things creatively that should keep the pressure downward on property insurance.
But there's no guarantee.
There's never any guarantee.
Okay, so.
But
if there's
most
no
likely.
If I may, if there's no guarantee, what happens if the insurance goes up? First of all, you put the money in the reserve fund. Is the insurance part of the reserve fund, or is it part of operating?
Part of operating.
So therefore, how can you borrow the money from reserves to offset if there's a problem? Where will the money come from?
Your question is, if there's a problem in insurance, that money would come from the contingency fund. It would not come from the reserve.
But we're also thinking about, as I heard before, the contingency fund is going to help us in case we have outside services going up. So you're really depending on a lot of what I call gambling. We don't gamble with our money. Take a look at our investments. Do we gamble? No, we don't. And in this case, you are gambling that certain factors are going to occur. And I personally think that that's not the way to go. That's just my thought. And let's see if I have anything else. I don't know if I should bring this up or not, but I will. I was walking my dog and I bumped into Nancy, and we had a little discussion. Nancy informed me, now I don't know if it's true or not, came from Nancy, so it must be right, that our housing, we're not selling a lot of housing in United. It's down. She said 15%. The question that we were talking about is, does this relate to people looking at, or insurance, or the realtors informing people that we have a problem with our reserves? Think about it.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Okay.
Excuse
We're
me.
not updated.
I think, Nancy, I think you had your hand up first,
No, we have,
or was,
I mean, no, we have a motion. Second?
we have a
Is
motion
everybody
right now,
in
we're in discussion.
No, I can wait. I put a card in, but I do have a
Okay,
comment.
all right.
So just call me when it's appropriate.
Director Murad.
I just want to clarify something I said earlier. So the property insurance is outside of the scope of the basic assessment, and we're here to talk about basic assessment. That was my understanding, and we're not. So I would like us to go back to the budget. But with regard to the property insurance, is it a different animal? It's not even included in the basic assessment. The insurance can go up and it can go down. We got a windfall. It sounds like it's a one-time windfall because no one can guarantee that it's going to decrease further next year. Why can't we just roll it over so that it can cover further insurance needs? Why include it in the reserve? I just want to make sure that we deal with the two buckets separately. There is the basic assessment and the budget, and then there is the property insurance. We got sidetracked on the property insurance. While it is a different line item, that's not even included in the basic assessment, and it is a variable item year to year. It increased last year, it's decreasing this year, but it would increase next year. So why move it from one bucket to another and run the risk of having an increase in property insurance in the next 7 months of 26? It's not prudent, it seems to me. I would like us to leave it separate and have property insurance cover property insurance and cover reserves and operating from the basic assessment.
Okay.
The only comment I would say with regards to that is property insurance is an unusual animal, right? Again, to what you mentioned a second ago, because it's not including your total basic.
Right.
But ultimately, if you have a reduction in property insurance, which you do, to the tune of $700,000-$800,000, that is lowering effectively your per man per month. So the recommendation that has been already approved and potentially being superseded is to not bring that assessment down, but to bring it back up to effectively the 5%.
Why isn't that a surplus that moves into next year?
If it's, you could, now I understand what you're saying.
Yes, so we might have a further expense next year when the property insurance goes back up to whatever it's going to be, while here we have a windfall.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to use up a windfall, a one-time windfall, to do whatever we want to do with it, and then get stuck potentially, to Dick's point, with a higher property insurance next year.
So when our risk manager factored in the second half of 2026, again, he did anticipate and include a 20% increase. So to Dick's point, we're not gambling. We are anticipating that you're not going to see property insurance go down, go down, go down, go down.
No.
So in 2026, the second half, we're anticipating it increasing. So we're taking that one-time windfall, and whoever mentioned it a moment ago, rather than giving that money back necessarily, taking those funds and putting it into reserve, because over the past, say, 10 years, there has been insufficient contributions to that fund. So take that windfall and put it where it should have been all along.
I've got one comment to make from that, and Juanita, I think that's Juanita Skillman.
Your hand, oh, her hand did go up. Okay.
Hand up, and Siobhan, did you want to speak too?
I did. I've been
I'll wait
communicating
and-
with our risk manager who's
Yeah.
listening to this conversation. He's comfortable with what is proposed because we are looking at a new program that should, again, keep pressure downward on property insurance rates next year and into the future.
That's right.
And I just wanted to say, last year, I asked almost the same thing, that I wanted to create a insurance fund to do basically what you're saying here. And I think at that time, the comment was that all we can do is assess property insurance at the budgeted cost and not have a special property insurance fund or anything like that to save, that we were only to pass that cost along to our members, the expected cost.
We can have as many funds as the board deems important. My recommendation would not be to have a separate fund. We know for the next 12 months what you're going to be paying, and to have a separate fund where those funds are accumulated overly complicates the process and prevents me from investing those funds without multiple board approvals, which becomes complicated.
But we couldn't just all of a sudden decide to add $20 more per man or per month for property insurance, correct?
Correct. Mid-year, no.
I mean, that even for this budget cycle,
You absolutely could.
we could make up whatever number we wanted to.
Oh, let me back off. My apologies. No, you're right. Because the way we present the property insurance to you, we bill you effectively
Yeah.
an actual.
Actual,
Right.
which means you can't
Right.
take the excess there. It's still going to show up as an add-on to the basic assessment.
Yes.
And just because we add $10 up here, the amount you're charging for property insurance is not going to change. It's going to show up the same. It's just a matter of the overall bottom line is going to be $10.
Without your motion, your per man per month would have gone down by $10.
Right, and with the motion, it's not
Correct.
going to.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
All right, no more discussion. Oh, yes, President?
Yes, well, Dick's point, we got it. But the thing is, the reason why we are doing it is because on top of staff's comment, some of us in financial department, I mean, the committee who are intensively involved with the insurance negotiation, we have a very clear understanding that next year will be much better in terms of new program and reduction, so on. So, yeah, again, we are not going to do every year, but just yearly basis according to the trend and the way that we could predict, we could do it. So this year safely that we could do it $10 moving to the reserve fund. So I'll move to go on to vote for that.
Okay. Juanita, I think you have a question or comment?
I have a couple of comments, if I may, please. First and foremost, you need to really define the difference between property insurance and property tax. All of us got a wonderful letter this last week from Steve with the notice of property assessed value, which kept talking about our property and the assessment on it, et cetera. I got one number, and my neighbor across the breezeway with the same unit, et cetera, got a much different unit because she had just bought it this year at twice the price that I paid. Makes a difference in the property taxes. People in third get a separate bill from the county assessor. Why is ours included? Because we don't own the property. None of us own this property. United owns the property. We have a share. And whatever our property tax is, and I would think it would be the same with the insurance, depends on our share. And the share changes value depending on when it was bought, how old it is, improvements that have been made to it, all of those kinds of things, which is why it's difficult to put a definite number on it. But I think we keep saying property insurance and then talking about property tax, which is added later. Define the difference and make sure we understand what we're doing with the difference. And one other thing, since I probably never get back, in response to, I believe, Tom's question, 10 years ago, or not quite now, we took a substantial amount out of the contingency fund to pay for solar. And it was on the agreement of the board at that time that we would put $5 per manor per month back in the contingency fund every year. The next year, the board decided they didn't want to do that. Our contingency fund continued to go down. So those are the types of big issues that come up that we pay for out of contingency, think we're going to put it back in, and then another board comes along and decides not to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so Tom, would you like to reframe our motion?
Maybe Karina can read it.
Yeah, there we go.
You want me to?
Not even going to try.
Okay, and the motion was to take the estimated $10 per manor per month decline in the property insurance and put the equivalent amount into the reserve fund and have this motion supersede the motion that passed earlier about the $4 per manor per month.
Good.
But it's not in the per manor.
This will be part of the per manor per month, but your bottom line cost will be $10 more than if you just took the $10 out from property insurance.
The one thing we'll clarify, that what he just said, period, addressing your question, where there's a difference between your total basic assessment, the 891 currently, that you're planning for 2026 without this motion. Again, then you have your supplemental, you have your property taxes, then you have your property insurance, and then you have your total per manor per month. You pay 900, she pays 800, she pays 1,000, whatever it may be. So that's the dollar amount he's talking about. Everyone's paying a different property per manor per month. So This motion's not going to impact the total dollar amount you pay after you apply supplemental property taxes and insurance. Your per man per month isn't going to change by what he's asking. It's just a movement out of your insurance into your total basic, which is part of the reserve, which includes the reserve.
What's the last half hour bid? Right? So that's what he said in the first place, right?
Before it was $4 per man per month increase, and now it's at $10.
That said it was gonna increase from month to month.
It'll increase your total basic assessment.
Oh, it's just gonna,
It's moving it from your total dollar amount. Your total dollar amount's not going to change. So it's just taking that piece and adding it up to the total basic assessment. So your total basic assessment, right now we have it at $891. It's now going to go up to $901.
Was a decrease. The total amount per month was going to decrease by 10 months. If we pass this motion, it will not decrease by $10. This is a $10 increase that
Yes.
people will pay by month, and it is to go to the reserve. So that's what we're saying.
Yes.
That's $120 to pay for next year for the reserve.
Yes, Tom.
By,
that's a good thing.
Right.
yes, but we're not getting that property insurance windfall as a decrease in our expenses. We are going to turn around and pay it back to the reserve. That's what it is.
Currently, our basic assessment's $49.90 per man or per month. And then there was a $10 decrease for property insurance. So your effective increase would have been $39.90 per month, per man or per month. With this motion, the $49.90 stays in there, but then the $10 that would have lowered it, we're taking that $10 and moving it to the reserve fund.
Can I just point out something?
Yes, please.
If we go through with this and we vote on this, this year, we're saying we're doing the $15 to the reserve, plus $650, plus $10. So
yes.
$31.50 is going to the reserves, which has a net impact, assuming we don't take anything significant out, of almost $2.4 million. There you go.
That's right. Okay. All right. Should we get a vote, please? All those in,
Was there a second to the
oh,
motion?
we said, yeah, Mickey? Yeah. Can we have a vote, all those in favor? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Motion is passed.
Okay, now, if you guys didn't understand it, we can't be impeached, right? Because I just didn't get it.
Nobody's going to be impeached. It's a good, it's a
And
good
if it
move.
hadn't,
It's a good move.
You should record
And
the
just
note.
to finish the vote,
Oh,
are you
okay, those-
abstaining or are you opposing?
Okay.
I'm
Those
abstaining.
Those opposed?
I'm abstaining.
One no and one abstention.
And Director Liberatore?
Abstain. Thank you. All right, super. That one's over with. Okay, next item. I'm actually looking at the proposed staff report for the proposed 2026 business plan version 3. Okay, we're still working on that one. I would like to look at, if I can. Do you have a question, Steve?
So we just finished number
was-
7.
Yeah.
Agenda item 7.
Yeah.
No, we have one more
No,
thing.
I have one more thing. Yeah. Oh, Nancy, please. Yes, you may.
I did put a card in. Nancy Carlson, 3038. A couple observations and comments. One, I kind of like the idea of a separate fund where you can keep track of that. I think that's a good idea in principle because we have lots of lay people serving on boards that don't understand how some of these things are interplayed in the line items. So, but follow the law on it, whatever the law is about that. So that was just my comment on that. With respect to the Revenue Committee, I chaired it for a while and then served on the committee. There were items still on the laundry list of ideas that we had. So the committee should continue to meet. It shouldn't suspend for two reasons. One, if we're not meeting, the ball doesn't move forward. It's as simple as that. You know that in committees. That's nothing tutorial on my part. And we had something that was out there approved, 7 months ago? And you just said we're kind of in a stall thing, and that's pretty important. And with notation about that, while we like the idea, we instantly, when we presented at a board meeting, we had, I think, 1 or 2 directors get up and say, whoa, wait a minute. I don't like the idea of somebody taxing, i.e. a fee, for me renting my property out. So do understand that there's a probability that we're going to have torches and pitchforks stroll into the boardroom about that. So it's also imperative then to keep the revenue committee going, because there's a lot of things you've just discussed here that begs for continuing to build the revenue options. And one of the other ones that was a very good idea was I wrote the brief on it, was estate planning, where people, I had quite a number of residents tell me, I don't have any heirs, I don't have any such, I want to leave such and such. I could leave my manor, for example, to United. How would I go about doing that? So that was actually an idea that came through the revenue committee. And since then, we've heard, well, maybe VCF, Village Community Fund, could take that over. If the revenue committee is not meeting, and we don't have an ambassador or liaison between the revenue committee and VCF, that's not going to happen. So it's really important to keep the revenue committee meetings going. So that would be my recommendation or advice or opinion, if you will, in the best interests of United. And then lastly, the idea, I noticed that the resale report indicated ballpark about a 15% decline in United sales in 6 months. We've never seen this before. And one of the slides, I think it was slide 4 on here, are factors that affect the budget. Am I right? Okay. We've never had that come up. So what does that mean? 15% decline. That means that we are not contributing money to GRF. That 15%, I did the math, is $232,500 for 6 months. Now, my question to Steve is, what happens? How does that ricochet back to United? We have the GRF treasurer here, and I asked him, and he said, ask the question. So we need to ponder this, because if we are not contributing to GRF, the obvious is, they could say, we're going to raise the transfer fee. That certainly will negatively affect people buying in. The consideration is, this isn't the Ritz-Carlton, and I'm paying this much money as an additional fee to buy into to a co-op. So that's something to ponder about how all this comes to play together. So we've never considered this before, and I was a little surprised that some of you guys hadn't noticed that, or maybe it was just too soon for you to digest the resale report. So that would be something for you to answer about that. How does that play out between us and GRF? Does GRF come back and say, at any time they can change their budget, we're going to increase the mutual's assessment? Now, I noticed the other mutuals don't have this problem. It's us. So one thing that I would ask the board to ask staff, give them a directive, is ask resale, what are you being told is the reason that they're not buying in United? 2, ask them, the staff, to find out from the realtors what is being told. Is it the reserve issue? Is there something else going on? If we all said, well, I think it's this or I think it's that, the this and that from among the people here isn't the valid answer. It's not the evidence we need. We need to know what it is so we can address the problem and solve that problem as quickly as we possibly can. I will tell you, I researched the Board of Realtors, what's going on in this area in California, and it's an 8% increase. Okay. So it's something's going on, and we need to know what that what that is, because it's a bit of a cancer growing right now.
Okay, all right, Nancy, thank you very much. And what I'm going to suggest on this kind of actions that you're mentioning, I think that should become part of the board meeting. Instead of, this is the budget meeting, but I really think that those are important subjects, and that we should reflect that at the board meeting.
I would agree with you, but I came today also for that specific reason, because it is the budget meeting, and what I'm saying is directly affecting the budget based on what this says here, external forces. So you're going to be approving a budget, but I'm saying there's a dangling participle out there right now, which is we've had a decline, and we're now going to be shorting GRF $232,000 in transfer fees. Yeah, the number of units, what that 15%, it translates, you can read your resale report, you can do the math yourself. Here's how many units are sold in the previous year period versus how many units are sold so far this year. And that the difference between the two times 7,500 is a 232,000. What that is that continuing to decline, which only makes it worse. And
Okay.
so that's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, at this time, I do have, I think we've got everything passed right now for the temporary, we're on forward now, right? Nothing's pending at this moment. One thing I want to look at, Steve, and maybe the board would like to chime in on this, is I'm looking at item, line number 5, the employee compensation of your staff report on page 4.15, 4-15.
Sure, we can bring that up.
Okay.
4:15, okay, I got it. Okay, yeah.
Get it up there so everybody knows what we're talking about. Bingo. All right, thank you. The $8,881,574 was the 2025 employee compensation. In that compensation, I have a couple questions. Are the vacancies included in that compensation for this year? In other words, that projection that you have here, the vacancies that were not filled, are they in that number?
So we've maintained vacancies in both the 2025 and the 2026 numbers.
Okay.
So
we're
this
in that
is
number.
just what we're considering funded.
Okay.
So if we have, say, 300 employees that we've approved to fill, but we have to manage to, say, 270, that's the difference between the 270 and the 300 is what we're calling a vacancy rate.
Okay, thank you. And down there on the third item there, you have additional FTT and allocation for vacancy elimination, I guess it is? Or
It's just a partial vacancy elimination.
with partial. Why is this 222,000 necessary if we have the compensation in the first line number?
Sure. So in 2025, when we came up with that budget, we came up with a number of positions that we felt that we could manage the business without. Based upon further review, we've needed to fill those positions. In fact, we've actually had to bring them in and fill them in 2025, a few of them, in order to maintain the service levels that you have grown to expect. And part of the reason why it was important to bring those positions back on was to avoid the more expensive alternative of using outside services.
Okay. Okay, that's all good. However, you know, I've been involved in many, many years of employee replacement with some pretty big numbers. But if we are already having the amount of personnel, the amount of vacancies hasn't changed. It seems like if you go back, our amount of vacancies that we have in VMS, that you have in VMS, excuse me, it's always been there. And I look back and it's always been there. It's something that hasn't gone away. So I don't know why we're budgeting the 222,000. I don't think it's necessary. I don't know if somebody else has any input on that number. I'm not familiar. Oh, please.
If you compare our vacancies for last year, 2024, with the current year, we are down about 20 to 25 vacancies every month. So we are running at a more highly staffed level than we have in the previous 2 or 3 years.
So our vacancy rate has actually gone down.
Correct, which is a good thing.
Okay.
By filling those positions in-house, we're using less outside services as a result.
Oh,
So that's a
absolutely.
positive factor.
Absolutely.
But you still have probably 30 to 35 vacancies any given month.
Which is normal.
Yes.
Well,
It's a little higher than probably normal, given the post-COVID job market that we're dealing with.
Right, right. Okay. Tom, yes.
Yeah, along that same line, the additional FTE and allocation, are those positions currently filled and staffed, or are they just projected for 2026?
Combination of both.
And can you tell me what percentage staffed and what percent's not staffed at this point?
I don't want to guess. But ultimately, when we came through and made some reductions, so we were able to, and it wasn't find United, find Third, find GRF. When we came down to what positions that we could maybe do without, so there was positions that happened to do with GRF, meaning we were able to cut some of the GRF positions, which changed some of the allocations and causing additional expenses.
And this 222,000, that doesn't represent many people, correct?
Yeah, I don't have the.
That's
I don't have those numbers here in front of
Yeah.
me. The real benefit that I wanted to include this table, why I thought it was important, was I didn't want people thinking that the 4% increase, because when you did the math, when you took a look at the business plan, it was greater than 4%. I want to say if you do the math on the employee compensation line, it showed it as a 6% increase. And that led to confusion because people were saying, when I look at employee compensation in 25, I look at employee compensation in 26, I see a 6% increase. And that's not the case. We're actually keeping to the 4%, which is what we've shared. And the reason why there's an additional expense in 2026 is because we've had to add back some employees that were previously defunded.
And we can get those particular numbers for you if you need them, Tom.
Okay. And you've still, is it correct, you've still taken out the 71,687 that was taken out version 2? Or yeah, that's still out of there, correct?
Still out of there, correct.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes, Director Rod.
Yeah, the 71,000 was taken out, but then it was added back in through the 222. My point is, at any point in time, you would have about 40 FTEs that are in vacancies throughout VMS, impacting the 2 HOAs and GRF. And that's about, I don't know, about $1 million associated with our HOA, which is included in this 8.9 million. It's already in there. So that amount is associated with vacated positions already in the compensation report. What this 222,000 seems to me is an additional FTE. It's a planned FTE, as you said, FTEs you don't have right now, but you want to have in 2026. And what we said back in the prior version, we don't want that. We said we don't want the 71, meaning we don't want the 222 either. What we said was we keep that level the same year over year, i.e., the vacated positions already included in the compensation report stay the same.
If we did that, I would
And
have
that's
to.
why we asked you guys to remove the 71, only to see the 222 pop back in.
Sure.
So I think maybe that's what Tom was trying to say.
If we were to remove the 222, we would have to add in, say, 250,000 outside services. We feel we can do the job cheaper in-house, hence why we're getting rid of some of the vacancy factors, because we think we need to bring the positions back in-house.
Even though you have benefits running at 50% for every $1 in compensation, you pay 50 cents in retirement and healthcare, even with that, you believe that
In those instances,
employees
yes.
are cheaper than outside services?
Depends upon the position, but yes.
Wow.
Depends upon the position. So some of our union positions, not necessarily.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dick, Mr. Rader.
Steve, I've often heard you mention that we're, especially the lower pay scales, that we're competing with the outside, who, obviously the pay scales have been increasing. has an analysis ever been initiated where you compare the lower pay scales with whether you increased it? What would happen? Would there be benefits? For example, you would, as you said, maybe have less dependency on outside services. Would it also decrease the burden on existing staff who's trying to make up for the fact that you don't have enough people, to serve? Because in that case, you may have lower turnover because you're decreasing that increased burden on that staff. Have you ever looked at that particular segment of the lower pay scale and whether we should be increasing it? Is there a benefit there?
Yeah. We do an annual compensation study, and those results are shared with the board in closed session because they are a personnel matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't, that just states what the problem is, but I'm asking, would it behoove you to take a look specifically at this situation? Because it's a pro or con. And I'm thinking that this problem isn't going to go away, obviously. The pay scale is up. In fact, I just saw, I don't know if it's true, I read something about California may go to $30 minimum. So think about that.
Yeah. So on a
good luck
grand
with that, yeah.
scale, we've not done that analysis across the board. We do the comp study on an annual basis, but just earlier today, we had a meeting where we discussed certain individuals that it would make more sense to, as opposed to avoiding turnover, we pay them a little bit more, right? So within budget. So, but we do pay attention to those factors. But we've not done a grand analysis. But
Okay. Another item I'd like to bring up that you're asking for in the expense compensation, you're asking for a 4% increase, salary increase. I am going to recommend that that be changed to 3% this year. 4% versus the union is not really a comparison to our ununion pay scale. The 4% that the union does, they get union dues, et cetera, benefits and stuff through the union that they pay for, okay? We do not have that kind of fees on the administration staff. We're not charging them fees for certain items and memberships. So I'm suggesting that the 4% salary increase be moved down to 3%.
I second.
Second, okay, discussion?
So if I can lead off, if I may. So in anticipation of that remark, we did some math. Overall, if you were to make that increase, it would have a reduction to your expenses of about $32,000. So keep in mind that about 63% of your salaries go to union. Obviously, 37 is the difference. So yeah, so overall $355,000 is, so as you can see on screen, $355,000 is the total impact of your 4% increase. So if I carve out the 30% that represents your non-union, that comes out to about $132,000. So that $132,000 divided by 4 comes out to roughly $32,000. So if you were to do that, that will inhibit our ability to keep our people potentially and potentially have to offset with outside services. And again, at the end of the day, it'll save you about $32,000, which translates into about 44 cents per minute per month.
Mr. Laboratory.
Thank you, President. I'm totally against that because it's basically kicking sand in people's face because they don't believe in the union. So I'm totally against it. Thank you.
Okay. I want to make a statement here. It's that I am not nobody here is anti-union. It's just that the part of our union that represents us, nothing to do with anti-union. Okay, let me make that clear.
As I mentioned, we do the annual compensation study for non-union employees. We are sharing that tomorrow in your closed session. I think that might have some interesting information that could influence your recommendation this afternoon. So just want to share that.
Okay. Mr. Rader?
I want to reemphasize what was said, the possibility of staff turnover and the savings that you may incur will evaporate because it costs you money to now go out and try and hire somebody. Factor in those costs because it's really hard to get people, appropriate people to run. When I was on the VMS board, I was aware of the fact that there are times when we wanted, not me, but VMS wanted to hire the most appropriate person. The most appropriate person said no. Why? Because of the salary. I think you just ought not to do that. I think that perhaps you should wait until you hear what the CEO has to offer you before you even decide to vote on this.
Nancy Carlson?
Just quickly, I would sum that up as a penny wise and pound foolish action to take to change it. Having served as chair on member hearings and hearing, we need more employees performing the work instead of always giving the jobs to outside services, which are sometimes 3 to 5 times more expensive. So that's an important thing to do. And by reducing it, they're going to leave, they're going to go find jobs elsewhere. And we need people an electrician can come in and do something else where we're not giving it to outside services. We've seen these invoices, they're very high. So that's, like I said, I think simply stated, it's a penny wise and pound foolish without being insulting.
No, thank you. Mr. Rod?
I don't think we're in the business of being employers and deal with hiring and firing and unions and benefits and retirements. We just want services, good services that add up to a particular service level. That's what we want. That's what our residents want. They don't want to be employers. And so again, I cannot believe that outside services, contractors, would cost more than employees being hired, having benefits and so on. And I totally believe that this additional FTE needs to go. We need to do more with less. We need to leverage outside services in anywhere we can and have less reliance on employees if that is possible. Thank you.
Maggie, over here, please.
I agree. I don't think this is a time to make a difference between your employees. And I think this is a time to be very careful about keeping your employees. Don't make a difference and don't make it harder. We're not a wonderful, glorious place to live. I mean, to work, we're only an okay place to work. And we need to keep it that way and don't divide them in any way. Just take care of our employees or we're in trouble.
Okay. Mr. Rader, another question.
Am I wrong, but wasn't there a study recently done where it was shown by various departments that our cost to deliver, VMS cost to deliver services was less than outside?
Yes, we did a study last January, February, so that would be 2024 that showed that precisely, especially in terms of landscaping and some of the maintenance and construction trades. You're absolutely correct, Dick. And that was shared with all the board members.
Yes.
Chairman Prater, I think that the 4% was rich, and you've heard that over and over again. That was my belief, that 4% is rich. You look online, it says that it's 2.7 nationally. Well, we're not national. It says that it's between 3 and 3.2. And I feel that we were taken, by going to the 4% because that compounds year after year after year. So I just think that it was out of line to begin with. And there, I don't see that this is the problem. And we just had an article in the paper that you saw where the city of Laguna Woods was crowing about the fact that they use outside services, and it helps them tremendously because they don't have to pay the pensions, they don't have to pay the insurance costs that are associated with it, the workers' compensation. I know we have a union, and we need to fill those spots with union people. But at the same time, we need to be reasonable.
Yes, Director Elsie. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I just wanted to be clear, you cannot compare the salary and benefits our employees get with city employees. Vastly different environment, vastly different rate of pay and benefits. Thank you.
Well, and I wanted to, actually, I'll follow up on, that's a perfect entree. The city of Laguna Woods may use a lot of contractors, but the city of Laguna Woods isn't landlord to 16,000 units, and that interfaces with 18,000 or 16 or however many we are. Our staff interacts with us on a daily basis. They're like you've seen, what's the name of that English show where the staff and the masters are like all totally involved? I mean, that's 19th century England, but it's the same thing. I mean, I have so much respect for our, I don't want a bunch of strange people coming in and mowing my lawn, frankly. I mean, you have to look at, and contractors build in, it really, you don't save that much money. The city of Laguna Woods may be, but they have a completely different environment and a different relationship with, and I like them fine, but they don't care what we think on an individual basis, and they don't forward our requests for, could you get this dumpster a little bit lower so I can reach it? I mean, on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's apples and oranges, the level of care that we get compared to what the city requires for their own purposes. And I, like everybody, I mean, I'm not dissing them. I'm just, because I read that article too, and I'm going, what? But it made me think. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So 4% seems reasonable, especially living in this area or even traveling to this area. This is a very, very expensive place to live. Not here. South Orange County. So that's all.
Mr. Rader and then Mr. Tooney.
I just wanted to add, it's an interesting thing to come up with a figure, 4%, 3%, whatever. But that's just a concept. If you're going to come up with that, I think that the board should actually look at hard facts. Take a look at some specific thing and say, what does it cost us here at BMS? Will it cost us on the outside? Otherwise, you're operating with just thoughts, concepts. Deal with fact. I think that would help you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion I move to postpone this vote of question until after the presentation by the CEO on the compensation study. I'd move it to the closed board meeting tomorrow.
Second and approved. Anyone against this motion? It is moved. All right. Is there any more questions right now? Any more questions? We're good? Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everybody's input, and I think this uncovered a lot of stuff and showed us a lot of stuff, and again, we're heading in the right direction. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Good meeting. Thank you.
I'm glad you found that $10. That was good. That was very good.